Hey, everybody. You are about to hear a brief retelling of the movie Ad Astra. Enjoy the movie. The film opens with Roy, an astronaut who works on the International Space Station. He descends down an antenna to fix a robotic arm that was reported to be malfunctioning. While Roy is still coming down, he observes something weird in the distance, but before he can investigate, a loud explosion happens at the top of the station, forcing several astronauts to tumble off. He attempts to notify the control of an electrical surge, but another explosion forces him to lose his balance and tumble off. Roy attempts to keep himself stable during the fall so he doesn't pass out before he can deploy his parachute. He manages to reduce his whirling and ultimately regains control of his body when he approaches the Earth's atmosphere. Roy releases his parachute in time, and despite a piece of debris puncturing it, he lands successfully, surprising both himself and everyone around him. As soon as he landed, he blacks out but senses paramedics approaching him. Several days after his fall, Roy finds that electrical storms known as surges have been occurring over the planet, and no one understands what's causing them. The electrical storm also caused the robotic arm to fail, which resulted in his fall. One day, General Stroud invites him to a top-secret meeting. When he arrives at the base, he is presented to General Rivas and General Vogel. They discuss the recurrence of surges and notify him that they have caught radiation from Neptune, which is the source of the power spike. Then General Rivas asks Roy whether he knows anything about the Lima project. This inquiry surprises him, given that his father was on a mission at the time. He informs the general that the Lima project was the first manned journey into the outer solar system. However, the ship vanished 16 years ago, and all expeditions to the outer solar system were terminated. The Lima project's primary purpose was to uncover extraterrestrial life on other worlds. General Stroud then shows him images of the workers on the Lima project, revealing that they believe his father is still alive. He adds that the surges are the consequence of an antimatter reaction, which was fueling the Lima project. And since Roy's father was in control, it's only possible that he's still alive. The generals explain that they want to send Roy to Mars so that he can convey a direct message to his father. However, because the assignment is top secret, he will only be given the most important facts when he needs them. He is told that they are now developing a cover narrative to keep the public quiet until Roy can speak with his father and halt the surges. Roy returns to the base, knowing he has no option but to accept the task. He remembers his father departing for the Lima project when he was 16 and disappearing when he was 29. He then activates a communication that he got from his father in orbit. Just as the message ends, a colonel named Pruitt appears behind him and presents himself as his father's buddy. The colonel informs Roy that they met when he was younger. He asks Roy what he thinks of their goal, and he says that he does not believe his father is still alive. The colonel admits that it is possible, but they must prepare for the chance that his father is keeping something from them. After their chat, Roy goes to a quarantine center where he will stay until his journey to the moon. He needs to stay in isolation to ensure that he does not get any infections before the expedition. Roy starts thinking about his ex-wife, Eve, a few days after his quarantine period ends. He begins recording a message for her but eventually deletes it. Captain Lou fits Roy into his spacesuit the next morning and welcomes him aboard his trip. Soon, the airplane departs for the moon, and Roy notices reports of the mounting death toll due to the surges, which reminds him of his true objective. As they land on the moon, Roy notices that it has transformed into a different version of Earth, and he believes his father would have despised what the moon has become. Colonel Pruitt interrupts his thoughts by informing him that their rocket is named Cepheus, and that the crew accompanying them will be military people who are ignorant of the true mission. The colonel then demands that they keep things this way. Roy first remains silent, but he eventually breaks his quiet and asks the colonel about his final conversation with his father. The colonel responds that the talk was unpleasant because Roy's father was upset with him for abandoning the program at their business, Spacecom, which represents the United States Space Command. The colonel notices Roy's face and asks him whether this assignment would be difficult for him. However, Roy informs him that Spacecom is attempting to accuse his father, a hero, of something they are unsure about. The two of them are then led to their destination, where they are instructed that military officials will transport them across no man's land to get their rocket. Later, a commander called Levant leads them to their space rover, where they begin their voyage to Cepheus. The commander cautions them that pirate activity has escalated in the no man's land, and they must remain vigilant. Not shortly after they start driving, they are encircled by several rovers filled with pirates, who manage to shoot half of the military soldiers accompanying Roy and Colonel Pruitt, including Commander Levant. When the commander is killed in combat, Roy takes over, despite having his spacesuit perforated, and attempts to handle the situation. He utilizes his abilities to steer one of the rovers away, forcing it to collide. He then shoots at the pirates behind them, allowing him to drive away. After the pirates have fled, someone from the command center informs Colonel Pruitt that his heartbeat is abnormal and that he should get it looked out. Hearing this, Roy wonders why the colonel, like his father, continues to fly despite his poor health. As they approach Cepheus, Pruitt informs Roy that he will be unable to join him on the expedition. But, as Roy leaves, the colonel tosses him a USB drive with confidential material. He then informs Roy that the folks at Spacecom dislike him, but that he must finish his duty. When Roy is situated inside the rocket and it successfully launches, he sees the video message on his USB. To his amazement, he learns that Spacecom accuses his father, Clifford, of purposely cutting off all external connections, and that if Clifford has overcome his own crew and his son's message does not discourage him, the goal will be to kill him. Suddenly, the rocket's captain declares that they will be responding a distress call. When Roy discovers that the Cepheus is about to make a stop, he attempts to prevent the captain from responding to any distress calls owing to the confidential nature of his mission. However, the captain informs him that he is merely a passenger and cannot discuss what he wants to do. Roy remains mute, knowing he cannot provide any facts, and allows the captain to attend to the distress signal of a vessel sent into space for biomedical and animal research. The captain and Roy venture into space and head for the vessel. According to the statistics, the spaceship should have 19 individuals on board. When the two of them enter the ship, it is empty, and despite their calls for the individuals on board, no one replies. The captain continues forward as Roy hunts about for clues as to what transpired. When he discovers nothing left behind, he pursues the captain and shouts out to him. Strangely, the captain does not answer, and when he approaches, he discovers a monkey chewing his face off. When the primate sees him, it leaps at him, but Roy uses his rifle to kill it. He then pulls the captain's body to the entrance, while more primates rush at them. Roy finally seals the craft's entrance, keeping the primates inside. He instantly returns to Cepheus and notifies the control center of the captain's death. On the other hand, the co-pilot is shook up by the occurrence and is unable to land the rocket. Roy takes over charge and skillfully lands the rocket before the team is led into a facility on Mars. Mars was also his father's last official destination during the Lima project. He is hailed by Helen Lantis, Mars operations manager. She leads Roy to a chamber where he is forced to record various messages for his father after reading from a script. After several fruitless attempts to elicit a response from his father, Roy chooses to speak in his own words in the hopes of hearing back from Clifford. To everyone's amazement, his father responds, but Roy is not given any other information and is told that he is being returned to Earth. Because he is unhappy over the news, his heart rate begins to rise, and he is referred for a psychological evaluation. Roy fails his psychiatric exam for the first time and is forced to settle down before returning to Earth. Helen enters his room and inquires about his objective. When she observes his hesitancy, she informs him that Spacecom has been lying to him since the beginning. She explains that she uncovered nuclear weapons within Cepheus, implying that the task he is on is to eliminate something. Helen reveals that she, too, was a victim of the Lima project, as her parents were also on the team. Roy does not answer, so she gives him a video of his father's last recorded message. As the video begins, his father appears on the television and informs that some of his crew members were refusing to move forward and their psychological condition was deteriorating. However, he expelled everyone who wanted to turn back since he did not want to disrupt their objective and wanted to continue his investigation of the outer solar system. Helen informs Roy that his father had deceived everyone, but Spacecom portrayed him as a hero to maintain their image. Roy knows he has to get on Cepheus and find out the facts as soon as he gets this news. He asks Helen if she can sneak him in, but she says she can only get him close to the rocket, not inside. The two then proceed to the launch pad, where Helen informs Roy that the only way he can enter the rocket is through the water beneath it. With barely a few minutes till launch, Roy unlocks the hatch and enters. This instantly notifies the crew about a breach, prompting them to notify Spacecom before Roy can stop them. He attempts to assure them that he means no harm and will not cause any difficulties for the staff. However, his promises do not alter anything, and the team is commanded to eliminate Roy by any means necessary. Roy begins emergency takeoff as two crew members approach him. The rocket suddenly launches, forcing one of the astronauts to smack her head on the wall and die as a result of the accident. At the same moment, the ship's commander appears behind them and attempts to kill Roy, who is wrestling with the other astronaut. The gunshot misses him and hits a gas canister, poisoning the air, killing the other two crew members. Roy transmits his final signal to Spacecom, informing them that he is traveling to Neptune to put a stop to the Lima project. He then cuts off the communications and begins his 79-day voyage to Neptune. The voyage is long, and being in zero gravity for so long has an impact on Roy's mental and physical health. Just when he feels he has had enough, he spots Neptune's rings. But Cepheus is unable to get beyond the rings, so he abandons it and takes a smaller vessel to the planet. As soon as he passes through the rings, he discovers his father's spaceship in the center. Roy's ship is damaged by the ice, making it impossible for him to land correctly. After considerable effort, he manages to land and exit the vessel. He approaches the Lima project ship and enters it. Inside, he discovers the remains of the deceased crew members floating around. As he moves farther into the ship, he shouts out for his father, but he does not respond. He then begins browsing through some of the files and data to see what the Lima project had discovered over the years it had gone missing. At that point, his father appears behind him and calls out for him. He informs Roy that he can no longer see clearly, but he is pleased that his son has followed in his footsteps. He goes on to explain that he is dedicated to seeking for alien life. Nothing else mattered to him, even though he knew he would be leaving his son and wife behind. To Roy's surprise, his father admits that he did not care for either of them, so when his crew decided to turn back, he got rid of them. The ones who stayed gathered data, but discovered that there was no life on any of the worlds around them. So, when the crew attempted to turn back, they got into a brawl, resulting in a tragedy. This is what is creating the surges, and Clifford has been working to limit them ever since. Roy informs his father that it's time for them to go and return home, but his father sees the Lima project as his sole home. But he persuades his father to leave and helps him put on his spacesuit. As the two of them head off into space, Roy attaches himself to his father to ensure that they remain united until they reach Cepheus. His father suddenly relieves pressure from his suit, pulling them both towards Neptune's rings. Roy's father encourages him to let go because he wants to spend his final days at a place he calls home. With no other option, Roy releases go of his father and watches him drift away. To return to Cepheus, Roy must cross Neptune's rings, and because his vessel has been destroyed, the only way to do so is by floating through them. He then utilizes his craft's door as a shield to traverse the ring. While crossing it, he has a flashback in which he is seen gathering data for the Lima project. He discloses that his father had investigated numerous more worlds, capturing unprecedented detail. Before exiting the ship, he ignites the nuclear bomb. When Roy reaches his rocket, he sends another signal to Spacecom, notifying them of his discoveries. He also informs them that he intends to use the pressure from the explosion to drive the rocket ahead. Roy stops the surges as soon as the bomb goes off, and he returns to Earth after 12 years to be rescued by the military. Roy is portrayed as a hero as a result of his findings, and he is able to continue his career as a Spacecom astronaut. Roy, on the other hand, knows that he has to focus on more essential things in his life. After a period, he has his last psychiatric exam at Spacecom and reconciles with his wife.